Welcome to our Alumni Voices. This event is something we look forward to every single year. My name is Maura Joyce, and I have the honor and privilege of being the head of school here at Post Oak. This is our event for 2023. And a little background information, Post Oak was founded in 1963. So if you do some quick math, that means we're in our 60th year as a school. We offer an education, a comprehensive education from 14 months through grade 12. We started though as a very small primary classroom with 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds, grew through to elementary, added a toddler program starting at 14 months, added middle school, and then eventually in 2012, we added our high school. We are happy to have you here. We know that some of you are current Post Oak parents. We know that some of you are looking at Post Oak, and we know some of you are here to see old friends and how they're doing and how they're faring and hear from our alumni. Our Post Oak education remains grounded in Montessori principles throughout all levels. We have the International Baccalaureate program at grades 11 and 12, but all of our students are lifelong learners. They develop academic, social, and entrepreneurial skills that help them pursue their passions and live a purposeful and successful life. And you get to hear all about that very soon. So now I'm going to pass it over to Dr. James Quillen, who is going to give a few instructions for our audience members and help or initiate our alumni in introducing themselves. So I'll pass that over to you, Dr. Quillen.
All right, thank you, Ms. Joyce. Welcome, everyone, attendees. Thank you for being here, and especially alums. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for contributing your time, and we're super excited to see you. So I want to let everyone know that we are recording tonight's presentation, and it will be available on our website. And we will begin tonight with some questions that have been collected from our students. And then we'll add a few of our own questions, and then we'll move to audience questions. So if you're a member of the audience, you can start entering those questions in the Q&A as they occur to you. You can upvote questions to avoid repeating. You can see others' questions and upvote them in order to avoid repetition. If you would like to see some biographical information on our alums and to see our college acceptance list, you can visit our website at postoakschool.org/alumni-voices. So that's postoakschool.org/alumni-voices. So now we are going to introduce this evening's alumni panelists. And if you could, each of you, please introduce yourself, give your year of graduation and what you're doing right now. And we will start with Mr. John Mellinger.
Hey guys, happy to be here. My name is John Mellinger. I graduated from Post Oak High School in 2016. Went on to go to school at UT Austin, studied mechanical engineering, continued to go into my master's program there, and today I work at Tesla as a mechanical design engineer.
Thanks. All right, let's go to Sutton.
Hi, my name is Sutton, and I graduated last spring in 2022, and I'm currently a freshman at Rice studying sport management and business.
Great. Iris.
Hi there, my name is Edie Sayala. I graduated back in 2018 from Post Oak, and this past May I graduated from Southwestern University where I majored in English and Spanish, and I'm currently working as a FEMA bilingual call agent where I get to help out individuals with their cases from natural disasters and stuff like that. I really love my job. It's very rewarding and it's pretty awesome.
All right, thank you very much. Elon.
Hello, my name is Elon Kluk. I graduated from Post Oak in 2020, and I'm currently a junior at Texas A&M University studying economics.
All right, awesome. Matthew.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Wadowich. I graduated from Post Oak in 2017, where I then went to Carleton College and graduated in 2021 as a biology major. I'm currently working at the National Cancer Institute in the neuro-oncology branch as a post-baccalaureate trainee.
Thanks, Matthew. Nathaniel.
Hello, I am Nathaniel. I graduated Post Oak in the class of 2021. I'm currently a sophomore at Bucknell University, where I am studying electrical engineering with a minor in physics.
All right. Rains.
Hello, I am Rains. I graduated from Post Oak in 2016. I just got my master's degree from the University of Chicago, where I studied political theory. And now I'm a designer at Axiom Space. This company is building the first privatized commercial space station. So that's what I do.
Nice. All right, let's go to Andreas.
Hello, my name is Andreas Cantu. I graduated in May of 2022. Currently, I'm studying communications at Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
Thanks, Andreas. Grace.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grace Armstrong. I graduated from Post Oak in 2016. I went to Barnard College for my undergrad, studied psychology, minored in history. I got my master's just this past year from Northwestern in clinical mental health counseling. I did my clinical internship up at Highland Park High School. I'm currently a licensed professional counselor in the state of Illinois, and I'm also a clinical psychology doctoral student at the Chicago School for Professional Psychology.
Thank you. Josie.
Hi, I'm Josie. I graduated in 2022 and I'm currently studying psychology at the University of Texas at Austin.
Very good. And last but not least, Henry.
Hey everyone, my name is Henry Quillen. I graduated in 2022 and I'm a freshman in the Computer Science and Business Honors program at UT.
Thanks, Henry.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Okay, your first question is, how did Post Oak prepare you for life after Post Oak? I'd love you all to answer, but I'd love you to raise your hand so I call you when you're ready instead of just calling on you. Who'd like to go first? How did Post Oak prepare you for life after Post Oak? I've already stumped them. No, I haven't. All right, Nathaniel, let's start with you.
Yes, I can go first. I would say one of the biggest things is something that I noticed about Post Oak is that Post Oak has a lot of resources if you are willing to go out and find them. It's a small campus and there's a lot of opportunities to, if there's not a club you like, you can go find some students and form your own. There's, for A and J term, if you don't like one that's offered, you can create your own. So there's a lot of opportunities like that. And when you get to college, sometimes you need to actually go out and find the things that, in order to actually engage in the community. And I feel like Post Oak did a good job helping to prepare me to do things like that.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Matthew.
Hi, everyone. Great question. I feel like one thing that Post Oak really excelled in was allowing students the kind of independence to explore and pursue their own interests, combined with kind of support from faculty and support from kind of just the surrounding Houston Museum District. And I feel like that's really translated kind of to myself now graduating college and kind of realizing the workforce when you're no longer in school is not going to have people kind of assigning things to you, and you're not really going to be always closely monitored in terms of like, do this now, next step, do this. You will have to have kind of those skills to figure things out on your own and to explore things on your own. And so yeah, I think that kind of growth and autonomy and personal independence that Post Oak provides was something that I found really beneficial nowadays.
Thanks, Matthew. Josie?
One of the biggest things for me, I would say, is probably time management, because just the way that our schedule was structured, we had time during the day, whether that would be to get ahead on homework or to do internships. And coming to college, our schedule is kind of the same way. I have a lot more control and kind of seeing the time that I have during my day and just being able to use that productively. I found that that's something that I'm really confident in already, and not something that I'm having to take the time to learn the first few semesters.
Great. Henry?
I would definitely say that the emphasis on getting kind of experience in the internship program was extremely beneficial. And, you know, being able to go and first of all, figure out what you want to do. I mean, I did an architecture internship and realized that I totally did not want to do architecture. But also, you know, being able to go to college and study a subject where you already have like professional experience in, you know, working in a professional environment, I think is extremely unique and powerful.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else want to answer that one? You can also do the old fashioned put your hand up too. You don't have to do the Zoom one. Sutton?
For me, I feel like Post Oak fostered this motivation and drive to do more beyond simple opportunities that are just in the classroom. I know that my freshman year in high school, I was already taking on multiple internships, and I think that experience sort of empowered me to do the same thing in college and be involved in a change that's bigger than just at your school, but in Houston as a whole.
Nice. Excellent. All right, Aries.
I personally really loved how Post Oak gave us open work time, and I feel like that really let me develop my time management skills. So when I got to college, I realized like, whoa, this is a lot of open work time that we have now, pretty much. So I got the chance to just like sit down, think about high school, and I was like, how did I manage my time back then? And then all of a sudden, I was doing that now, but with real life, you know, with my time apart from classes and stuff, managing not only work but also classes and stuff. It was really cool to see how that translated from high school into college and stuff, or transitioned.
Excellent. Anyone else? All right, I'm going to move on to a new question. I just lost my place and I had them all. Here we go. What are a few words that describe your experiences and friendships from Post Oak? Maybe we can get some different folks to words that describe your experiences and friendships from Post Oak. Elon.
I would say impactful for both experiences and friendships through sports or through during lunchtime, whatever you're doing. It's kind of like the basis of what I went on to do after high school or after Post Oak as a whole. Now in college, everything that I've learned, how I act, my mannerisms, they all were kind of born at Post Oak. And so I would say impactful is definitely my word.
Andreas.
I think I'd like to use the word everlasting,
Mhm.
especially in terms of maybe friendships and relationships built within the school, whether it's with teachers or other students, especially having spent 4 years in high school with the same group of people every day. It really helps you build that connection with both teachers and students to the point where it doesn't feel like it's going to fade away. And then having spent my whole life at Post Oak, the 16 years there too, it really has helped me develop a strong sense of belonging in this place. And it's definitely somewhere that, I could always feel comfortable going back to, talking to teachers and seeing how it changes over the years.
Thanks, Andreas. John?
Yeah, I think I'll echo what Andreas says. I think you form really strong relationships because of the class size, as well as getting a lot of time face to face with teachers, working through problems, or if you're in an internship too. It's 4 years with a smaller group of people. If you're in the high school, is great bonding experience. I know I still stay in touch with a lot of my classmates even today, and I graduated like 7 years ago, which is kind of crazy.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Anyone else? All right. One of the things I wanted to share with you guys, and you may have noticed, is that we refreshed our mission statement as a school, right? And we wrote that Post Oak School is a diverse and welcoming Montessori community that honors and guides lifelong learners as they create their own bold pathways in leading purposeful lives. In what ways, and this might be a better question for some of you who have been out of there for 6 or 7 years, in what ways have you blazed your own bold pathway or really found that purposeful path, that path to a purposeful life after leaving Post Oak? Matthew.
I can start. Yeah, I guess one thing when I attended Post Oak that I kind of cherished was how it really encourages one to explore different fields, and even like one can be interested in a very specific topic, but teachers and different opportunities will kind of push you to think outside of that topic, and not in a way meant to dissuade one, but in a way meant to just kind of broaden one's horizons and interests. And I personally kind of experienced that through J&A terms that were so different than anything I was learning in the classroom, and so different than anything I had learned before. And so I think that I guess kind of really I'm forgetting the actual question, but that really, I guess, was
finding purpose and plotting your own pathway.
Yeah, I think that's something I've carried with me in wanting to do that since graduating, and kind of realizing that one doesn't have to stick to a super narrow field of interest. There can be diversity in that, and diversity in learning and what one's doing, and in one's pathway.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. Rains?
Yeah, I think to echo that, like traditional education, it's like really follow these sort of narrow pathways and disciplines and being stringent about things like grades. But, like real life is like far more open than that. And so, Post Oak kind of prepared me for the moments where it was like I maybe was unsure about what discipline I wanted to study, but instead of being afraid and then picking something specific and going with it because that seems like the right thing to do, just like kind of being okay with the uncomfortableness of just like I'm going to study something that I want to study, where I'm not going to have a career path planned. And to be honest, that's like far more effective, at least in my experience, is not having a plan and just following your interests like worked out the best for me. um, and I certainly thought back to Post Oak, I had no idea what I wanted to do the entire time I was at Post Oak, and it led me to having enough experiences that by the time I was in college, that mentality was like really valuable. So yeah.
Thanks, Rains. Grace?
Yeah, I mean, kind of similar, but also maybe a little different, is I feel like I think COVID for me particularly, because that was when I started my master's, was really kind of a turning point, because I wanted to do what I'm doing now, which is be in a doctoral program, but because of COVID, there was a lot of cut downs in terms of research funding for obvious reasons, but that kind of left me really stuck because my institution primarily didn't have anything that I could do or I could explore. And I was with a group of other people who were just like, okay, I guess that's just not something we're going to get. And I was like, no, I'm going to find it, and I'm going to find my way to do that. And I don't think that me as a person would have had that kind of ability or that strength without having the post-oak experience, where I was very much encouraged to not necessarily just like stay within the bounds of like the high school. I think it was very useful for me to be able to go intern at like the Jungian Center or see other people be able to pursue their own interests. And now even when I worked with teens all the time, they would be like, well, I don't know if I can actually do that. And I'm like, why not? Like, why not? Like, why is that not an option? And they're like, I literally didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about the why. And I'm like, yeah, like, let's explore that and let's do that. And I think that that's something that has really helped me because I'm always thinking about different pathways.
Awesome. Thanks, Grace. John?
Yeah, I think post-oak's like a really good springboard for helping you find your interests. I know going into high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But getting the opportunity to try out a bunch of stuff and like J&A term, I knew I was interested in engineering. So a few classmates and I started the EV club, where we converted like a gasoline powered car into an electric vehicle. And I was like, oh, I really like doing this. I want to be involved in engineering. So kind of pursued that forward into college and eventually, I guess, to what I do professionally now. But I can't say I necessarily would have found that if I went to like a non-Montessori school.
Nice. Thanks, John. Some of you have who are earlier in your college careers, maybe this is a good question for you. How do you think you are different from some of your peers who didn't study with a Montessori philosophy, who didn't go to a Montessori school? Are there things that you have that you don't necessarily see with some of your peers? Elon.
The first thing, excuse me, the first thing that comes to mind is definitely presentation skills. Getting up in front of a crowd of people, or in a class, if you have to present or do a speech, I feel like I am not worried about that. And that's definitely due to post-oak. Whereas a lot of my classmates in college, they're freaking out. They're like right before practicing it a ton. You can see that they're nervous when they're up there, and that I definitely I don't have that, and I definitely learned it from post-oak. So I would say just comfort in front of a lot of people. Yeah.
Thanks, Elon. Andreas?
Yeah, so I completely agree with what Elon just said, comfort in front of a lot of people, but I also find comfort in front of few people too to be just as useful, whether it is like a small seminar class, which at least I have experienced a lot of. I find myself so comfortable to either run the seminar when my classmates are being quiet or contribute as much as I can, but I also find it very easy for me to go and ask for help, which I find to be such a crucial thing for anyone. I'm always completely ready to go ask my teacher a laundry list of questions, whether or not my professor wants to hear from me or not. I just, having the 4 years at post-oak that allowed me to speak to my teachers whenever I really need it has really given me that confidence to do so now.
Awesome. Anyone else? Sutton.
I think something that makes me different is I have this idea inside me that you don't have to be an upperclassman or be a senior, be the oldest to be the leader, like go for the internship, take a harder class. I think a lot of my friends, when I discuss an internship I may want to pursue, are like, oh, you don't have to do that. Yeah, like, why are you in such a rush to like be out in the real world? And I think post-oak really gave me that knowledge that you don't have to wait to go out and do what you want.
Awesome. Edie.
So I have to agree with everyone else. I feel like post-doc really prepared me to honestly just talk in seminars, ask questions, not be afraid to contact my professors. I found myself honestly emailing a lot of professors the way I would at post-doc. And post-doc really helped me like get out of my shell too. I used to be very introverted as a freshman at post-doc. I would be super duper quiet. But as the years went by, teachers would be like, hey, eventually you have to talk, so let's go. And I just found myself in college being a little bit more extroverted and not afraid to talk in classes. So I'm really grateful for post-doc.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see if I can pull one of the students' questions here. What do you miss about post-doc? What do you miss? What things that were uniquely post-doc that you don't really have where you are now? Nathaniel.
Probably the biggest thing is where you could go, like everybody knew everybody. You could go to anybody for if you needed help with somebody, you knew who to go to, which included students and teachers. That actually affected my choice in college. I go to Bucknell, which is a fairly small college. I have like 15 to 20 people in my major. I should know that number, but I don't. But even still, like I know everybody in my grade and my major, but that doesn't mean I know all the professors in the department or that I know like who I can just go to. So there's a smaller group that I do have, but it's not the same as it was at post-doc.
Awesome. Henry.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's having relationships with or strong relationships with my teachers. Obviously at university, especially at UT, which is a very big, it's a big pond, and it can be tough to kind of build those connections with your teachers and professors, especially because it can be big classes, but also it's like you have new teachers every semester. Where at post-doc, it's you're around the same people for all 4 years, and even if they're not teaching you, you still build a relationship with them through JRA terms or trips or whatever it may be. And so yeah, that's definitely one thing that I miss about post-doc.
Awesome. Thank you. Elan.
I would say like a sense of family or home at the high school level, middle school and below, really at every level, just because you spend so much time there most of your day. When you're that young, you're at school. And so since post-doc is small and tight-knit, it's very just you feel loved and you feel cared for. You feel like people care about you and they want you to succeed. And at A&M, of course, they want me to succeed as well, but it's really big. And so you don't have like that personalized relationship as much. And you really have to go find it if you want it. And at post-doc, it's always there for you when you want it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Elan. I'm going to take one of the questions that came from our attendees. And this is for some of you. Some of you started at post-doc at a very, very young age, but some of you came to post-doc after not necessarily attending a Montessori school. How was that transition? Someone wants to know. And how did that differ from more traditional schools? Matthew.
Hi, yeah. I came to post-doc not ever having attended a Montessori school before, and I guess the what I would say about the transition is it definitely was one. It was a difference, but I think it's going to be a difference kind of wherever you go. I think the transition between 8th grade and 9th grade regardless of the school that one attends is a big jump. You're in a very different community. You have different ages that you're surrounded by. And one thing that I think really stuck out about Post Oak was how much focus was given on the community and on making sure that students felt welcomed and felt included through things like the Odyssey trip. I don't know if that's still going on, but it is, and which was like just an incredible kind of welcome into the school, and then continued to be an incredible kind of introduction into the new year each year that I was there. And then both kind of the faculty and students were just all very supportive, and there was a huge emphasis on caring for one another. So I think that the transition felt as smooth as it could be, changing communities.
Thank you, Matthew. Grace.
Yeah, I think a lot I echo a lot of what Matthew said. I think there was, coming from like a really big school, like my middle school was like Pin Oak Middle School, to give you like a sense of where I came from. So like going from that environment to going to literally 13 other people was a large transition. But I think it was a really positive one, because I think it's not that I think I wouldn't have done well. I was supposed to go to Bel Air High School before I even learned about what Post Oak was, but not that I wouldn't have transitioned well enough. But I think that it was easier to transition because there was that kind of proximity and closeness with the teachers in the community, that they were like, we recognize that this is a shift. Whereas I know from friends who went to other high schools, and also now that I have worked in a large public high school and have worked with kids who have transitioned, that's not always the case. And I think that can be rocky, whether you're going from like a large public school to a large public school, or a private school to private school, or whatever combination. So I think that I probably, in many ways that I didn't really realize or be able to comprehend, probably did benefit a lot from having such a supportive and like aware community and teachers and mentors, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you, Grace. A lot of you mentioned teachers. What are the attributes of a Post Oak teacher that you find that inspired you to do your best, or that you have not necessarily been able to find in other places? You can also just tell a story about your favorite teacher. Okay, Grace.
I know I just talked, sorry. But I've been thinking about this quite often, because I just finished like my first semester doctoral study. And this may be like a really large statement and maybe crazy, but I swear, I don't think I've met like a professor or a teacher that like really engages like with like students at that same level, like at a doctoral level, and like outside of like the postdoc setting. Like it feels the same to me. Like it feels, I will talk about things that I'm interested in, or I'll talk about like nuanced concepts, or I'll want to talk more. And I feel like I never got that sort of mirroring and that sort of interest and that sort of like support and structure outside of either my doctoral program or at Post Oak. I think that and I feel like I've carried that in how I interact with other people as well. So I feel like it's very rare. I think it's not even common in doctoral programs. So I just think it's really, really good teaching. And that's my opinion.
Awesome. Thanks, Grace. Andreas.
I'll say there's a certain sense of friendship that you can kind of garner with the Post Oak teachers that I have yet to experience with any of my professors. I know there's still a long way to go, but the teachers at Post Oak, not only are they excellent educators, but they're also just really fun people to talk to. You know, they're just as willing to make a joke as they are teach a concept. And so that's just something that I found so cool and so almost rare with most teachers that I've encountered so far. And it's just something that's so cool about Post Oak.
Thanks, Andreas. Edie?
So one of my favorite things about the teachers at Post Oak, for some of them, I love the way that they ran their classes. Specifically, I'm thinking about like Spanish classes. It was a really cool and unique experience how instead of reading about these events through textbooks, we were actually doing them in person. Like for example, we would do posadas and we would, instead of reading about it on a textbook, we could actually do like recipes in the Post Oak kitchen, which like, hello, that's such a unique experience to say like, hey, I was cooking up food with my teacher. And it was just really cool to see how we would have those interactions with teachers that you wouldn't get at a traditional school or in universities and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that I really miss about Post Oak, and it was really cool and unique.
Awesome. Thanks, Iris. Rains?
Well, Dr. Quillen was my favorite teacher at Post Oak, and what Dr. Quillen did well, which I didn't realize at the time, but he was able to take sort of like a college level of criticality and then apply it to a high school setting, which is like not necessarily easy. So, like a lot of high school history classes, at least I'm going to guess, will like be about the dates and the names and things like that. Whereas art history classes were much more open-ended and about like crafting a question about something that happens in history. And I majored in history in undergrad, and that's like really what history is. It's just asking a series of questions. It's almost never arriving at an answer. And I'm impressed that and not only Dr. Quillen, but that other teachers were able to do that at a high school level. Is something that like I'm perpetually impressed by. So
Awesome. Any others? Oh, Grace? Oh,
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to share something that happened this week to ride the Dr. Quillen hype train a little bit, is that I was in my history and systems of psychology course, and we literally my professor literally had a slide about guns, germs, and steel and talked about it. And there were 3 other people in my class who had like read the book, but I was literally the only person who could like talk about it for a long period of time. And my prof was just like, when did you read this book? Like, when would you have had the time? Like in like what I know about you. And I'm like, I learned this in high school. And he's like, he was like, that seems weird. That seems weird that you remember all of this, but it's still serving me to this day. So sorry, I just wanted to share that.
awesome. All right. So I'm going to read another one that came in through the audience, and I'm going to have to put some pressure on Josie and Ilan and Sutton and Andreas and maybe Henry, maybe Nathaniel. I don't know when, but the question is, I'm looking to enroll my son into the primary and to stay at a school in which he can grow through his elementary, middle school years. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with Montessori at Post Oak and how your learning experience evolved through the years from when you were younger up to the point when you graduated? See if you can speak to that. All right, Henry, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I came to Post Oak in 3rd grade, but I've been in Montessori all my life. And I remember when I was very young, I would be like I remember getting angry because my teacher wouldn't like give me enough lessons, and I always like be asking for a lesson. And I think, that's just so different than like the kind of typical school experience where it's like you want to have the minimum amount of work, minimum amount of stuff you have to do, whereas Montessori, because it's kind of self-paced, it's not like you're not getting stuff crammed down your throat, and it's kind of like you want to learn things. It really instills a kind of perspective that like learning is fun and interesting, and I think it's definitely carried through all the way through high school.
Awesome. Thank you. Andreas.
Well, to the parent who asked, I'll definitely just say do it. It's like be a great decision. But so I've been at Post Oak for 16 years, so that's all I knew. And I can confidently say there's no other educational system quite like the Montessori system. As Henry said, it is very self-paced, but it's also designed so that even to looking into it from the outside, coming from a public school, I can just imagine how strange it must look that no one's sitting in desks and that everyone's kind of doing their own thing. But it really works. It really does, because it's up to the student to decide whether or not they want to succeed. And I think when you present that decision to a student at such a young age, it matures them quickly, because they have to learn from early on that the only way that I'm going to do well is if I want to do well. And I think that's such an important lesson that Post Oak teaches at such a young age, and then not only, and then perpetuates that lesson for the entirety of the Post Oak career. So it's an excellent experience, and yeah, just do it.
Thanks, Andreas. Nathaniel.
Something I would use, the thing I would say that would define the post-doc education is it's about asking questions and trying to find those answers. So like through elementary school, and I'm going to be honest, I don't remember primary. It was a long time ago. But through elementary school, it's using materials to try to like come to answers on your own, whether it was creating timelines, it was using like beads and stuff to learn how to do math. Going through middle school with occupations, there's an emphasis on learning by doing, and then that gets exemplified in the high school through internships. Throughout all of it, there's discussions. There's in high school we had community meetings. I don't remember what they were called, but I know we had similar things in elementary and middle school, where you're like, even if it's not through a class, there is an emphasis on talking as a group and coming to a solution. And it's more about how to get there than it is what the actual solution is, which is very transferable to any topic you want, because you learn how to if you learn how to multiply, then you know how to multiply. But if you learn why multiplying works, and when you get to division, it makes more sense. So
Great, Nathaniel. And Ilan.
I totally agree with what everybody said. Just to piggyback on what Nathaniel just said about learning multiplication and how it happens, specifically with that, I would say what's really cool about Montessori is that at a younger age with that stuff, it's not only how you learn it, but then you remember, okay, so the blue beads go this way, and then you have to move the red ones this way. And so like you really remember, I personally would remember how to do things based on like seeing it physically. And that's not only with math, for example, with geography, which was what I always loved growing up since primary, doing the maps, and then in lower elementary and upper elementary doing pin maps. And I would remember the countries based on the color on the pin map. And so those are things that, you know, you don't learn like that anywhere else. And that's something that I really liked.
Awesome. Sutton.
Yes, I think going along with what Elon said, sort of talking about the materials, I started at Post Oak when I was 16 months old, and I was there all the way through senior year. And I attribute my creative mind and my sort of desire to bring my work to life through all the creative activities that Post Oak has you do. I mean, there's such a hands-on approach to learning, whether it be in primary working directly with the Montessori materials, or in middle school when you're assigned creative responses instead of an essay after a project. I think it also creates very strong bonds within the community. I think if you have a whole class that's reading about the Pyramid of Giza, they're going to form a different relationship with each other than a class working together to build the Pyramid of Giza out of paper mache and candy in the Post Oak school kitchen, like I did for many, many days. So I am very thankful for the way that Post Oak guided my learning in a creative way.
Awesome. Great. Okay, super fun one. Favorite memory of your time at Post Oak? Favorite memory? Brave soul to start. Oh, Henry, you're raising your hand. Let's do it.
Yeah, this one was a bit traumatic, but definitely a funny memory. Fabricio was decided to microwave his food, which had 2 large hard-boiled eggs. And and so, he microwaved the hard-boiled eggs, comes down, we're all sitting eating food together. I'm like right next to him. And he pokes his fork into one of the eggs, and it like it's like an egg grenade. It just like it makes the loudest pop noise, and I got egg like right into my eye. I like fell over on my chair, and I think we laughed for a good like half hour after that. But it was just a really funny experience. And there's a lot like that, I think, in post-doc environment, small things where, funny things. And then there's of course like the trips and J&A term, but it's also, I think, just the small moments with friends that I really cherish.
Thanks, Henry. Josie?
It's hard to choose just one, but one of my favorites was definitely my freshman year J-term trip to Jamaica. It was kind of the first big trip that we were going on as a school, and it was just a really great group of people. And so I worked on restoring this old kitchen, and then at nights we would kind of watch movies or play games, and it was just a really great way to bond with people and just get to know people. And I had been really intimidated going into high school, but it was the first time that I really felt like I found my place and was really connecting with people, not just in my grade but also in older grades.
Awesome. Thanks, Josie. Rains?
I maybe have two, but the first one, John and I used to spend like a lot of our time during art class, like not necessarily honing our technical skills, but just being creative. So like we would make movies sometimes and like learn how to use the software and how to edit them. Or, like make, I don't know, paper airplanes, learn how to make all the different variations. And it sounds kind of silly, but like that is like kind of like what creativity is. It's just like you and somebody else, or maybe by yourself, just learning how to use a software tool and like messing up the entire time until you finally learn it. And so that was kind of a happy but productive memory. And I would also say similarly, my senior year, I got to play, I don't know if we played in a game or a practice, but with my younger brother who had gone to the lower school, and John, and maybe even Ilan, I don't remember, but the high school lost in the scrimmage, and we were all very upset and angry about that. But it was nice to know that the next generation was going to hold strong. So, yeah.
Awesome. Nathaniel?
Not necessarily my favorite, but definitely something memorable. Was Odyssey one year. We were at a marine biology place that we were going to study a lot of different things about marine biology. There was a trip planned where we were going to go and look for sharks, and then we learned about sharks. But we get there, the night we get there, after like an 8-hour drive or something like that, and we go into this big lecture hall, and they're like, "All right, everyone, we're gonna watch Sharknado." And that's what we did, and that was the first thing we did that night. And it was a very productive trip as a whole, but it was just not what I was expecting when we were going there. And it was great because we were just all sitting as a school in a giant lecture hall just watching Sharknado.
Matthew?
Okay, well, first of all, I love hearing that, Nathaniel, because I had that exact same experience, like probably like 4 years earlier, like truly down to Sharknado, that exact same experience. But I would say probably one of the most memorable or my favorite experiences was one of the A terms where we went to Nicaragua, and one of the kind of parts of the A term was going to this island in the middle of Lake Nicaragua called Ometepe, and working with a bilingual school there. And I remember we first got there and we were staying in a hostel on the island, and opening up the door to our rooms for the night, and our beds were just covered in spiders. And I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be horrible. Like, I don't want I don't want to be here. And then the next morning we woke up for sunrise and walked down to the beach like right outside the hostel, and there were just like horses running on the beach, and we went kayaking in the morning, and then like worked at the school in the afternoon. And I just remember thinking, like, what is this school? What is Post Oak? Like, why am I here in the middle of high school? But I think it's experiences like those that have have really stuck out to me, that make Post Oak different and make Post Oak not just one's typical high school, and really make Post Oak a special place.
Awesome. Anyone else want to share their favorite memory? All right. Last question. I'd really love all the panelists to answer this one. As I told you when we were practicing, Post Oak right now is in the middle of a strategic plan. We're working on envisioning the future and the things that we want to do better and the things that we want to be bold about and innovative about. What are the things, whether you graduated in 2016 or you graduated last year or you're going to graduate in 2030, what are the things that make Post Oak Post Oak? No matter what period of time we're in, what are the things? Maybe you can give us one or two things that definitely makes Post Oak Post Oak. Nathaniel.
Well, I think by a lot of people's answers to other questions tonight, the thing that is very impactful is the community. The fact that you know everybody, you can go to, like, the teachers are very approachable. You'll have deep conversations in class when you're learning. A lot of it is seminars. So even when you're in class, you're discussing academically, and then outside of class, you can maintain relationships in a non-academic way. I mean, I still have lunch with some teachers out, like, I graduated 2 years ago, and I'll still, whenever I come I make sure I always visit the school whenever I come back for a break, and I still meet with some teachers. So that community is what it is for me.
Thanks, Nathaniel. What else makes Post Oak Post Oak? You may have stumped them. Awesome. Ilan.
I would say what makes Post Oak is, like, the quick way that they can create change for the students, like the school and the staff and the teachers, specifically, I guess, for high school, or well, in general, but I'm thinking about it in high school. Small changes, big changes that needed to happen next week or next year, concerns that students had were always very focused, like, as a priority to create that change. And I think that's really special for Post Oak.
Awesome. Thank you. Edie.
Okay, so I don't want to sound repetitive, but I'm also going to mention community. I feel like we honestly just had such a unique community with all the students, and not only the students, but also the teachers. We created such a unique environment there. I remember community meetings. We would all get in a circle with their chairs. I don't know if you guys still do that. I hope y'all do, because I remember, okay, there we go. I remember we would just voice our opinions. Teachers would really listen to us and not just treat us like students, but also like they would hear our opinions and take them into consideration. We would work together to find solutions in the community. For example, I went to the reunion just last week, and apparently this is still an issue, the missing forks in the kitchen. Who knows where they're going? But it was just funny mentioning that during community meetings, and also taking on like serious topics and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Edie. John.
Yeah, I think at Post Oak, there's like a real spirit of creativity and open-mindedness. There's like a lot of structured, unstructured time, like open work, as some people mentioned before, really gives you a lot of opportunity to kind of explore things or try things out. Sometimes, maybe it doesn't work and sometimes it does, but I think that's something very unique to Post Oak.
Awesome. Andreas?
Yeah, I think a great physical aspect of the school that makes Post Oak so great, and thinking more specifically towards the museum district campus, is that it is in fact located in the museum district. It's walkable from, you're in walking distance from Museum of Natural Science, the Art Museum, the Medical Center. And so that also helps, with the internship programs. It gives all the students an opportunity to really branch out and explore their interests instead of having to stay confined to the classroom. And I think that's just such an excellent aspect and really what makes Post Oak Post Oak.
Nice, thank you. Anyone else? Great.
I think this is kind of similar to things that people have said, but I think the student-centeredness of Post Oak really makes it kind of different, because I'm thinking back to just all of the stuff, and like, not just I was part of the first class, so I can understand that we kind of started a lot of things, but from what I understand, some things still exist, like the party planning committee, but now it's called something different, and I think that's really cool. But I just think that it's I don't know, I'm comparing it to like the high school that I worked in, but I think it's just so fundamentally Post Oak to have students be the ones to propose things, and like the teachers or the adults are like scaffolding that experience, rather than it being like students are like, hey, I'm interested in this, and then it becomes like a team of faculty that run something. Like, I think that integration of students working with faculty to make things that last a long time is very fundamentally Post Oak.
Awesome. All right. We have time for one more person to answer that question. If someone's feeling brave, what makes Post Oak Post Oak? Edie.
Okay, I'm just gonna say one last thing. I really enjoyed the location of the school too. The fact that we were near, well, obviously it's in the museum district, so we were close to all of the museums and stuff. But also it's really cool how during open work time we could just like run over there for our internships, and like we didn't have to get a school bus or anything. You could literally just like walk a few blocks and you'd be there. So keep that in consideration as you're looking at high schools too, or just schools for your kiddos and stuff.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. I'm so grateful to our panelists. Round of applause for all of you, and those of you who attended. Thank you so much. And this will be on the website and available. So if you have friends who missed this, please, by all means, tell them to look for this so they can hear the wonderful things that these students shared with us tonight. Best of luck to all of you alums. We look forward to seeing you again, and I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. Good night, everybody.